Okay, so let's just jump right in. To really get a grip on our planet, you have to appreciate its history, which is, it's almost unimaginably long. We like to think of Earth as this nice, stable place for life to thrive, right? But the geological record, it tells a totally different story. A story of these repeated catastrophic resets that have completely changed the world over and over again. And if you need a number to put that into perspective, here it is, 99%. That's how many of all the species that have ever lived on Earth are now extinct. It's a staggering figure. It really forces you to see our world not just as a place of beginnings, but maybe even more so, a place of endings.
And that really gets to the heart of this idea. The fossil record is basically the proof. It shows that our planet's entire history is written through these massive global disasters. It's a graveyard of vanished worlds, where life has been pushed right to the absolute brink time and time again. Which, of course, brings us to the big one. The question that's hanging over all of us right now. We're going to take a look at the 5 great historical resets to really understand their patterns, what caused them, and what happened after. Because, understanding them might just be the key to figuring out if we are at this very moment kicking off the next one. So, first up, we're going to look at extinctions that weren't caused by some sudden single event, but by the slow, relentless unraveling of the planet's own climate systems. These are the big systemic breakdowns. All right, so we're starting our journey almost 500 million years ago. We're talking about a world so ancient, it makes the dinosaurs seem like they were here yesterday. As you can see, life faced 3 huge crises, pretty much back to back, and each one was a major test of survival on a planetary scale. So the first major reset, way back 444 million years ago, was this really vicious 1-2 punch. Now, life back then was pretty much all in the ocean. And first, a sudden, super severe ice age locked up all the world's water. Sea levels just plummeted, drying out all the coastal areas. And then, right as life was kind of adjusting, the planet's thermostat just completely broke. It swung the other way, the ice melted, sea levels surged, and the ocean chemistry went haywire. 85% of all marine species were wiped out. The key thing here? The speed of the change.
Okay, so what's so fascinating about the next extinction is the irony. It's just incredible. The cause wasn't some asteroid or volcano, it was life itself. As plants evolved deep roots and started taking over the land, they began breaking down rocks, which released this huge flood of nutrients into the oceans. This led to massive algal blooms that, when they died, just sucked all the oxygen out of the water. So basically, the greening of the continents caused the suffocation of the seas, killing off 75% of all species. Wild, right?
And that brings us to the big one. 252 million years ago, our planet faced an apocalypse so total, so complete, that it's just called the Great Dying. This wasn't just another extinction event. This was the absolute closest Earth has ever come to being completely sterilized, just a dead rock in space.
The way it happened was this terrifying chain reaction. It all kicked off with these gigantic volcanic eruptions in Siberia that went on for 2 million years. This just pumped unbelievable amounts of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, raising levels to over 2,000 parts per million. To put that in perspective, right now we're at about 420. So this triggered runaway global warming. The ocean soaked up the heat and the CO2, and they became hot, acidic, and totally starved of oxygen. It was a complete system failure. And this just shows you the devastation. Just look at these numbers. 96% of all species in the ocean, gone. 70% of species on land, gone. Life on Earth was nearly snuffed out. It took something like 10 million years for the planet to even start to recover. The extinction rates back then were thousands of times higher than normal. And that's the benchmark that modern species loss is now being measured against, with a lot of concern. But here's the flip side of the story. For the very few who do manage to survive, an extinction event isn't just an ending, it's a brand new beginning. See, these resets, they create a vacuum. And one thing we know about nature is that it always fills a vacuum. And this same pattern repeated itself about 201 million years ago. As the supercontinent Pangaea started to break apart, these huge volcanic eruptions again pumped the atmosphere full of CO2. And yeah, it was a total disaster for about 80% of all species, but it was a golden opportunity for one group in particular. The dominant crocodile-like reptiles of the time got wiped out, which completely cleared the stage for the rise of the dinosaurs. Yeah, this really sums it up perfectly, doesn't it? The Triassic-Jurassic extinction basically handed the keys to the planet over to the dinosaurs. And as we're about to see, the extinction that wiped them out, well, that handed the planet over to our ancestors, the mammals. One group's absolute apocalypse is another group's golden ticket.
So 66 million years ago, the planet had what is probably its most famous bad day. A 6-mile-wide asteroid hit with a force that is just impossible to imagine. Unlike those slow volcanic deaths, this was instant. It threw so much debris into the atmosphere it blocked out the sun and food chains just collapsed. The giant dinosaurs perished. But our ancestors, these small burrowing mammals, they were uniquely suited to survive. Their small size meant they didn't need a lot of food, and their underground lifestyle protected them from the worst of the fallout. They basically emerged into a nearly empty world, ready to take over.
Okay, so we've just toured 5 global apocalypses. What have we actually learned? And, more importantly, what can these ancient collapses possibly tell us about our own future?
Well, you can think of it like this. The past has given us a playbook for how to break a planet, and it has 3 huge warnings for us. First, it's not just climate change itself, but the speed of the change that's the real killer. Second, there are these climate tipping points, especially with CO2, that can trigger a full-on system failure. And finally, sometimes a shock from the outside can rewrite all the rules for everyone, literally overnight.
And this is really the chilling takeaway from all of this. When you look at the patterns from the past, I'm talking rapid climate shifts, rising CO2 in the atmosphere, acidifying oceans. You start to see these really uncomfortable parallels to what's happening today. And that's exactly why so many scientists are now asking this very serious question.
So at the end of the day, these 5 great resets aren't just cool stories from a distant, deep past. They are the planet's playbook. They are 5 separate case studies in how a world can break. And they serve as a really profound warning for us. And that just leaves us with this final thought. Life on this planet is an incredible privilege. It is not a guarantee. We are the very first species that has the ability to read this deep history, to actually understand the playbook. So the real question is, can we use that knowledge to change our path and avoid becoming just another layer in the fossil record?